Hey, I'm Phil McNevin from Mimics and Miniatures, and today on Table Talk, we are going to talk about sculpting and my personal process for sculpting miniatures. Today's episode is brought to you by RuneForge Academy. RuneForge is a great place to learn how you can actually sculpt miniatures yourself. They have a whole bunch of courses that you can take to learn how to sculpt miniatures for 3D printing. If you want to check them out, go to runeforgeacademy.com. Before we get into the content of this video, I just want to give a special thanks for all my patron sponsors. I'm going to show their names right up here. They are the ones who really make this channel happen. And if you want to get involved, you can go to patreon.com/mimics and miniatures. And not only will you go and support this channel by becoming a patron, but also you will get weekly miniature releases. You'll get a sneak peek at the new Kickstarter that we're launching called Reign of the Necromancer. This is coming out a little bit later this year, so you can go and check that out right there, as well as click the link in the description below and follow that if you want to follow that on Kickstarter. And one more thing, stay tuned to the end of this episode where I will tell you a little bit more about a contest I'm running where you can win a custom miniature sculpted by myself for your D&D character. So this is a one-of-a-kind miniature personally sculpted for you for one of your D&D characters. If you want to get details, just stick around to the end of the video and I'll talk more about that. All right, so I'm going to break down my very quick process for sculpting miniatures. Typically what I do is I start with the concept art. So I will grab a bunch of different reference images for the miniature that I'm going to sculpt. In this case, we're going to be talking about one of the mimics that I created for my Kickstarter project that I launched several months ago called Monstrous Mimics. Today, this one is a urn that transforms into like a worm monster. Kind of reminds me a bit like the monster from Tremors. So once I've got the concept art drawn, then I get into sculpting. So like I mentioned in my last video, if you haven't watched that, you can click it right up here. The program that I use for sculpting is called Nomad Sculpt, and I do this all on my iPad. I was hoping to record this whole process and speed it up, but for some reason my recording just kept stopping and not saving, so I hope you forgive me. We're going to use images today to show you my process. Once I open up Nomad Sculpt, I then come and bring in a reference point. So in this case, I use one of the miniatures that I've already sculpted, and I bring it into the application just to use it for sizing reference. After I bring in my reference model, what I do next is to do a rough blocking. So because this is a worm, a transformation of the original urn that I had created, I'm going to first import the base of the urn just so that we can use that in our final model. And then I create rough shapes to form the basic positioning or structure of the model. After I get the basic shapes in place, now let's go into creating spikes. So I'm going to import a cone. And then I'm going to reshape that cone and then place it onto the back of the worm. And then I'm going to go and create multiple spikes and place those in different places on the worm, because this one's going to have a bunch of spikes and stuff all over it. Now that I've got that kind of blocked out, I'm going to go in and adding additional detail. This is the phase that usually takes probably the most amount of time, is to go back in and sculpt all the nuanced texture and details, eyes, the mouth, get some extra texture on the back of the worm. Then I have to go back and kind of, tweak it a little bit, make sure everything's in the right place, has the right pose. I might go back and re-alter the pose a little bit just to make sure it's got sort of a dynamic pose. The other thing that you want to consider is supports. And because this is going to be 3D printed, the more that you can think about sculpting your miniature so that there's not a whole lot of islands, which are like these little dangly bits that need a support to come up and be able to print that. We'll talk a lot more about that in the next episode when we talk about 3D printing. The less amount of these islands, the better, because then you'll have a much better time printing and making it easier to print. So I'm still not great at this. I'm still learning, but it's a process that I'm trying to get much better at. I've been learning a lot from other miniature designers like Arbiter Miniatures on how they do their minis that require no supports at all. So that's one of the things that I'd like to improve personally. And that's it. Once I've got all the details done, this miniature is finished, at least from a sculpting standpoint. Then I will take this and we will go into Blender, and that's where I will start to prepare this model for 3D printing. In the next episode, we'll go through my process of preparing it for 3D printing and to actually 3D print the model itself. We'll cover how I take this model and reduce the polygons to make it easier for slicing applications to then interpret and open up these models. We'll also go through how I create supports just to make sure that it prints properly, specifically for resin printing, and then we will print it and I will show you my process for printing. Okay, so at this point of the video, I want to make sure that we talk about that contest I mentioned to you at the beginning. If you want to win your own custom personalized miniature for your D&D character, all you need to do is go to mimicsandminiatures.com. Scroll down a little bit, you'll see this big white button that says something along the lines of enter the contest. You just click that button, enter your name, your email address, and you'll be entered to win this personalized miniature. We're going to be announcing the names early May, so you'll definitely want to get in on that. And also, if you want to give a bigger chance of winning, make sure to share that contest with your friends, because every person that you refer to the contest who enters, you'll also get an extra ticket for the contest. So be sure to share it. That'll increase your chances of winning this personalized miniature. If you have any questions about my sculpting process, be sure to hit me up in the comments below. You can also reach me on Twitter at Phil McNevin, and also on Instagram. You can message me there at Phil McNevin as well. So thanks so much for watching. We look forward to seeing you in the next one.